So with that, it's the perfect time to welcome our guest, Michael Raimondo. And Michael works with Justin Du Toit, who is away on other family matters and couldn't join us today. So before we get going, Michael, would you like to say, you would like to greet the group?
Good evening, everyone, from a very dark evening from the tip of Africa. I'm almost on the most southern tip of South Africa, and just saying good evening to all of you. It's so great to see you all.
And you might notice the candles in the background. Michael was just telling me about where he lives, and you know that they're very off the grid, very off the grid. It was very neat. So Michael and I are going to have, as we've done in the other sessions, Michael and I are going to have a conversation. We're going to do a breakout session and then some more Q&A and conversation. So while this is happening, if you have any questions you'd like to ask Michael, please put them in the chat. Not the Q&A function, but the chat, which is at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see chat pop right up, you'll see three dots that say more. Go in there and you'll find the chat. And put your questions in there. And then as time goes on, at different points, I will go in and read them and see, pull out some questions for there. So that's kind of the ongoing thing to be thinking about. So let me start off. It seems like a good place to start off in our conversation, Michael, is to give us a sense of, what happened before this Reflections of Life project. How did you get here? Tell us some things about who you are and why you're doing this work.
Okay. I wish Justine was next to me. She's by far better looking and probably a bit more eloquent than I am. We are much more comfortable being behind the camera than in front. But our background is that neither of us are filmmakers by training. I would say we are just two inquisitive people trying to work out the meaning of life. And previously we had ordinary jobs, should I say. We lived in the city of Cape Town. Justine had a corporate job, and I was a conservationist and started working, doing communication work for big NGOs around Africa and around the world. And, with all jobs, you have that financial security and you enjoy parts of the job, but your intuition tells you that it's not quite right. It wasn't fulfilling us and bringing us meaning and purpose. And we dreamed about trying to create authentic stories about ordinary people who were living their lives. And could we showcase these stories without any agenda with people all around the world? And so 7 years ago, we quit our jobs. It wasn't an immediate thing. We didn't suddenly wake up one day and stop everything. It was a gradual process over about half a year where we started doing more and more of these passion projects, which essentially is traveling around the world, mostly in South Africa to start with, and trying to sort of showcase the infinite beauty of being human. What are those universal truths that we all share, whether it is love or loss or grief or meaning, joy, what makes us human? And so I went out there as the cameraman, untrained, having conversations with strangers, and Justine does the editing. And fast forward 7 years, we've done about 260 of these stories, and it's profoundly changed the way we live, how we see the world, and that's where we are right now. So that is all we do right now. Is every 2 weeks we share a story with everyone around the world, those who want to watch it on YouTube and other platforms.
Did you say did I hear that right? That you were untrained in video when you started?
Both of us never trained, never went to film school. Uh, I think one always has an imposter syndrome, that you'll never be as good as someone else. But it's a process, and you just learn from your mistakes. You try not to be too hard on yourself. Because we were really doing this for ourselves and we self-funded this for the first few years, it wasn't like you had a boss, so you couldn't really get it wrong. You tried your best, and if people found meaning in your work and liked what you were doing, they'd write you a beautiful comment, and you would keep going, and you'd learn from your mistakes, and that's all we did. So we've just sort of kept going over these years.
Huh. I mean, they're beautifully shot. So, I mean,
Thank you.
that's pretty cool that you're fast learners. You can forget about the imposter syndrome part now, that's gone. Um, so a few years ago, you switched from the Green Renaissance uh, work branding to Reflections of Life. So what happened there? Why did you make that shift?
I think no matter who you work for, whether you work for an incredible NGO, in whichever field, whether it's conservation or other health, there's always an agenda. You're always having to sell something. You're
Mm,
always having to tell a story in a certain way. We would go to the deepest, darkest parts of Africa to show the last elephant that wasn't poached and have to craft a story around that to raise money for that NGO or the poor African child who didn't have. And although those were meaningful projects, we never felt that they were truly 100% authentic,
mm,
and that it didn't give us carte blanche to really tell the stories about these incredible people we would meet along the way. And some of those ordinary people, whether it's a taxi driver or the shepherd or the whoever you met, they have their own beautiful story, but it didn't fit into the agenda of your paid client, whoever that was. So we decided, could we find a way to tell authentic stories, extraordinary stories of ordinary people with no agenda? We're not trying to sell anything. There's no politics. There's no particular religious angle. It just is showcasing humanity.
I mean, that's an interesting evolution. Makes a ton of
Thank
sense.
you.
How do you, and someone asked this in the chat, and again, I'll remind folks who have questions, put them in the chat. How do you find your subjects?
I think that's something we get asked a lot. So that each story will have hundreds and hundreds of comments, and one comment that comes up the most is, "Where do you find these incredible people?" And I think all of us have beautiful stories. We all have trials and tribulations in life. Um, and a lot of the stories I find are through people I've spent a day with filming. So if I, for example, meet you and I do a story with you, before I leave, I'll say to you, do you know anyone else you think I should go and meet? And often it is that sort of thing. If I'm filming in remote places, so I've gone to very remote islands all over the world, from St. Helena to the Faroe Islands to the Hebrides, there I just arrive and I walk the streets and I will randomly speak to the postman, the fisherman, and then you just go on your gut feeling. Is there something in this person that they can be open to tell me anything? Uh, I obviously prefer the older generation because people who've lived a full and long life have come to a point normally where there isn't an agenda. There's no more, I don't need to prove myself. If I ask them anything, they normally tell me how they really are feeling. And and so I just go on a gut feeling. So I walk around, I have conversations with people. If I resonate with them, then I say, look, would you mind spending a day with me? The film is yours. You get to see it first. If you think there's meaning in it, then we share it with the world. So that's how I work. And I'm alone. It's just me.
Yeah. So the films have these themes. Uh, do you discuss that ahead of time, or you edit it so that, they have there's a theme that comes through it? How does that work?
No, I think when just like Gareth Higgins said the other day when you had a talk with him, there are these universal questions that one can ask.
Mm,
And instead of just going for the small talk, which is how are you, you know, it's
mm,
digging into those two deeper layers. So what is really bringing meaning into your life, and what's challenging you at the moment? And those two themes go somewhere. So I never have a prepared list of questions. When I meet someone, I try and listen as much as I can, and I ask them how they're really doing in terms of what's bringing them meaning and what they're struggling with. And then the conversation takes its own course.
Mm,
So I never know whether we're going to talk about love or death or animals or whatever it is. But you know straight away when you have a conversation with someone, when they light up or when you see that they're passionate about something, that's where you go. And then you just listen most of the time and they will tell you the story. So I go where it needs to go, and I try to arrive with no agenda, to be a mirror to the other person, to be vulnerable and to let them talk. And I just keep quiet on the other side of the camera, and it goes where it needs to go.
mm. Do you find, and I'm going to try to blend some questions here, do you find that because you've already been thoughtful about finding these people, that they get what you're doing, that they quickly get into the mindset of where you're headed rather than, rambling all over the place like so many of us do when we talk? Do they kind of sink into it? And then also how long does it take you? How long are you with each person when you do the shoot?
So I think like in anything in life, the longer you do something, it just becomes an intuition, right? And so I guide the conversation. I have an hour and a half conversation with someone, and it goes to many different places in that conversation. But I will really prompt them and ask the questions. And if they, going down a path, I'll try bring them back and really go for that universal. I'm just inquisitive. I'm trying to work out the purpose of life and why we're here and the secret to enlightenment and trying to be a good human. And so my inquisitiveness is reflected in their answers. So I talk to them for an hour and a half, and I normally spend a day with them. And nothing is staged. So if you like to walk your dog, we'll go for a walk with your dog. If you like to drink a cup of tea, we drink a cup of tea. And so I have that conversation, and then I get about 4 scenes with that person. If they play some music or they like to go and watch the sunset. So it's ordinary people doing ordinary things. There's nothing, if it's raining, it's raining. It is what it is. And you show up each time, you tell a story, and you keep going. And it's a body of work. So we try not to get too particular about every single story. It's, can you look back on
Mm.
260 films and say, here's 20 stories about grief. Here's 30 stories about love. Here's 40 stories about whatever it is. And create a body of work that when someone finds a film, they can watch a few like that.
Are all the 260 films on the website?
Yes, they're all on the website. They're all freely available for anyone to watch and share. They are all translated, or most of them, into 20 odd languages. We have these incredible volunteers around the world who don't support us financially, but say, I love your work. Can I translate it into Spanish, German, Chinese, Hindi? And so we have these incredible people who help us do the translations as well.
Oh, that's very cool. Someone put into the chat, uh, what is the website? So it's Reflections of Life. If you type that in, you will see
Yeah.
the website pop.
Reflections of dot life. But if you just Google reflections of life, we'll come up at the top of Google.
Um, there's a couple of questions here that relate to something I'm going to ask you later, so we'll come back to that. But more on the kind of a little bit on the mechanics. How about the music? Where does the music come from?
Well, it's a process. I do the filming, I do the really easy part of the work, and I step away and I hand it all to Justine, and she does the hard work. So she has to sift through hour and a half of conversation and choose 10 minutes of the story and make it into something beautiful. I never see the film again until she's got an edited version. So I never tell her I've met this incredible lady who lives on the island and she talks about the thing. So that's how it works. We use library music. So there's quite a few different library platforms that we can source music from. as soon as you use commercial music, YouTube flags you and bans your video, so it doesn't get shared with the world. So you have to be very, very careful on using the correct music. So we have Artlist is one of the music libraries. If someone is a musician, like the next story coming out this Saturday, she's an incredible cellist. She lives outside of Seattle, and so we were able to use a lot of her beautiful
Yeah.
music in the film. So if someone is a musician, then sometimes we get to use their music in the story.
Mm, mm. Do you, now, I'm going to put you on the spot. This might be a stretch, and if you can't make this connection, that's fine. But in our work, we're those of us, by the way, not everyone who's on this call are part of Third Act, which is great. This is open to other folks. But those of us who are here as part of Third Act, we do all different kind of advocacy work. And part of our challenge is when we meet somebody who doesn't see the world the way we see it. And I'm not talking about the people who are so far off from where you will never convince them. I'm talking more about people who kind of see what we see, but maybe they're not active or something. So there's a person who perhaps we can have a conversation with, and maybe we can convince them to change their point of view a little bit, or more importantly, convince them to come join us and go do something, or to write an op-ed or whatever it might be. So where I'm trying to go here is you, in your conversations with people, you're drawing them out. You and I can tell just from talking to you, we've only talked a couple times. You're very good at talking with people. I wonder if you have any recommendations to us who are out there doing this work. How do you connect? Yeah, tips for connecting with other folks who might not see the world, drawing them out and making the connection is all about, at the end of the day, finding shared values. And we all have, almost everybody, we have shared values around nature, which is, wonderful. And your work comes through in your work in the poem today. Yeah. Any thoughts about that topic that you might provide as advice to us?
Look, I think that's why we do what we do. We try to show that we are all much more similar than different.
Mm,
And we try to find those characteristics in all of us. Doesn't matter who we are, what language, our skin color, our genders. What are all of those things that make us human? And if we can all agree that to be human is to love or to grieve or to, you know, these universal themes, then we can relate. So it doesn't matter your political point of view or your environmental point of view. If I can resonate with you that you are human and I feel the same way, then I can share compassion. And the beauty about this job is that, well, it's not really a job, it's a calling, it's a passion to be of service, is that how often one is wrong. We all have these judgments and we all think, I meet this person, they're going to be this way, right? It's your upbringing, it's your community. And suddenly they start talking and they blow you out of the water. They are. I met this tough guy in Brooklyn, in New York, this beautiful African American man, muscles rippling, strong guy. And I was a bit intimidated even going there by myself and walking around. And he starts talking, and he's the most vulnerable,
mm,
um, beautiful man. And it just blew me away, that your assumptions and you can meet a shepherd in the middle of nowhere, or you can meet a homeless person under a bridge, and they can be the wisest human you've met. So often, your stereotypical judgment ideas are broken. And I just think if you can show that you are human and you can show compassion and love, then you'll connect. I don't have an answer to secretly get someone on your side. I just don't know how to do that. I try have a conversation. I try and mirror someone's emotions. I normally say to them, look, I'm going to get emotional during this conversation. I normally end up in tears. If someone tells me something emotional, I can't not feel that. And if I'm emotional, they're emotional, or I tell them my hardships and they tell me theirs. So it's a two-way thing, right? You can't just say to someone, join my side, we are right. It's not going to work.
mm,
So I've
mm,
I've given up on that sort of angle, but I think if we can show our humanity, we can share our similarities, our fears. I think we'll come together.
Mm, And there's a real element of active listening there, being really engaged in the listening side of it on your part, and then maybe eliciting that from them once they get going, I guess. Um,
Yes,
Kind of going on that, but a little deeper and more specifically tied to the Hope and Joy series, and something comment you made before as you go across the screen here, and what you know about third act tends to be older folks, and a lot of life experience, and coming at the work for uh, all sorts of reasons. But one thing that some people come in with and some don't, and one thing I really focus on when I'm actually talking to people who aren't third act, but even in third act, when we're on calls, in things, it's just the idea, which took me a long time. I I had no brilliant, like, born with this or anything. I took me a lot of hard work to come to this very simple point, is the power of community. And there's two elements of that, right? One is, if you look historically, and we had a great speaker who talked about that in the United States history, and true of anywhere in the world. You and I were talking about Belfast earlier. Change comes because people like us, regular people, step up and say, we've had enough, and they engage. So there's the power of community to elicit change. It's not the politicians who create the change, it's the people who push the politicians to create the change. And people often forget that. So we kind of feel powerless, but that's not true. And history shows that over and over again. You can look at voting rights. You could look at, in the United States, the creative, the FDA, labor laws, voting. I mean, on and on and on. It all started with grassroots work. So that's one side of the power of community, and people get that, but not necessarily overtly see it. But the second part is that when I get onto a call like this, all right, we're all looking at each other on a screen. It's still incredibly powerful to me because I'm in this community of people who care and who showed up here to have this conversation with you. And many of, I know, in fact, I bet everybody here in one way or another is doing good things in the world, trying to make the world a better place. And then, of course, it's even better when you're in, a live setting. But that's incredibly, that's what provides my resilience. When I get down, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, there's all these people around me. And I mean, they're everywhere. They're all around us. I'm at my brother's house, and there's all these people around me. And I know I've never met any of these people, but I know there's a lot of them doing good things in the world. And then to be in your presence doing them, and then when you're actually doing things together. So that's incredibly healing and a source of great joy for me to know that. So with all that rambling, I'm wondering how those ideas resonate with you, how you've seen it in your work, and whatever else comes to mind.
Well, a lot comes to mind, but I think one of the resonating themes, I've asked all 260 plus people that I've in this series that I filmed with, many before that as well. What is the meaning of life? What is the secret to enlightenment? And over and over and over and over again, it is to be of service in whatever shape or form that is, right? To be of service, and whether that is making a cup of tea for someone, or helping in the community garden, or bringing your community together, that has been the resounding answer from a multitude of people all around the world. So I take heart in that. If you can do something with your community, or for your community, or for your neighbor, that is of service, that brings an incredible amount of meaning and purpose into your life. So for us, we are inquisitive people. I happen to hold a camera, and I find huge meaning in that conversation. And then naturally you build a community. So every single person who writes to us gets a reply. And some films will have thousands of comments under each story. Every single one gets a reply. And it's about it's about that community. Often I can get depressed about the world. If I'm not making films for a month or two, you kind of lose your North Star, you lose your purpose. And then Justine will remind me, she says, go read the comments under any film. And you see the community at work, how people resonate with each and every story, and how they are beautiful and compassionate and kind to each other. And it gives you hope, and you keep going. And these are not big things, these are tiny little things. I'll give you an example. I did a story with a grandmother who was 90 years old, lived on a tiny island in the Faroe Islands. And all the visitors that came there, she'd just make them a cup of tea. And she loved receiving letters. That was her thing. She loved receiving letters, and she had a little visitor's book. People could write their name, and sometimes they'd write her a letter. After her film aired, people started writing to us and said, can I write this grandmother a letter? And she received thousands of letters from all over the world, from people she had never met, just saying beautiful things to her about what her conversation meant to them. And I mean, that's a tiny act, right? So it gets me a bit emotional, but these are tiny things that we can help each other out in small, small ways. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot I can say about that as well. But your point about a tiny act, you don't know, things ripple out, right? So you don't know in our work if we have one conversation with somebody in a bar, or I don't know, we write a little piece that gets published, or we write a legislator, or we encourage other people, or a lot of us are working on get out the vote. And a big part of that is people writing postcards to people they don't know. So we get lists of people who are voters, and we're trying to encourage them to vote. And you write out this little postcard and off it goes. Who knows? Who knows what that has engendered on the far end when somebody gets it, like, oh, I'm going to go talk to 10 people. And occasionally, and it's probably more frequent, yeah, for sure, with you. You just told that story about that woman in the letters. You occasionally, the rest of us, something comes back at you a week later, a month later, 2 years later, that you just did, and then you found out it had this deep effect, and then they went and did something. It's very hard to keep that top of mind right? Because you don't know, if you don't know what the outcome is, right? You just did it. And if you don't see the outcome and don't have that feedback, it's hard to keep that top of mind. But keeping it top of mind, it seems to me it's quite. So, Michael, one of the things that, as you know, the work that we're doing on the third act these are big questions we're working on, kind of core to all sorts of things, the environment, the state of our democracy here in the United States, and other matters. So these are not matters for the faint of heart. And also our community here is, we're elders. So we're coming into the third stage, or however you want to say it, of our lives. We all have challenges with all sorts of challenges related to that, no doubt, with our own health, with health of our friends, health of siblings, all those kind of things. So this isn't easy stuff. And in the conversation that I had with you and Justine, um, we all have our personal challenges, and given the way that you guys think about the world, I think you're very in tune with those things. So I'm wondering, in the work that you do, how does that come back and help you navigate the challenges of the world? How does that give you joy, I guess, is this, to get to the part of our title. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. I think when you have many conversations with hundreds of people, you realize that some of your problems are pretty insignificant in the grander scheme of things. There's a lot of people who are really suffering out there, who have much less than you have, um, yet they are happy. And that's what I find profoundly um, why are we so tortured and depressed when we have so much? And I've done stories with people who are shepherds, who some people who have literally nothing, who live in a hut in the middle of nowhere, or done quite a few stories with homeless people, and a lot of people who have very little, yet they are content. So I'm able to step back and just be grateful for everything I have in my life. That's number one. Um, I also realize that I can't fix everything. I always used to be that guy who, if someone had a problem, I'll be the guy who solves it. If someone is sick, let me find the magic potion. And I've realized that often now I just need to bear witness. I just need to show up. I just need to be there. Sometimes I don't need to say anything. I can just hold that person's hand. I can just be there. And that's been really important for me to realize that I don't need to fix things. I can just be there, and I can just try and do my little bit. And that's enough. And if each day I can be kind, I can treat the earth uh, in the way it should be treated. These are not, I don't need to solve all the problems, but I can try to do little things, easy wins. I can keep the promises to myself to try do those things every day, and not always to talk the talk, but just to walk it. For years and years and years and years, I worked with a lot of people in very big, powerful NGOs, trying to save the planet. But I was despondent in that they were doing this incredible work, but they weren't walking the walk. And instead of preaching to them or telling them they were wrong, I thought, let me, in my little way, try and do things that seem right to me without trying to preach to others. So, how can I live uh, a life that is kind to the earth in whatever shape that looks like, in whichever way you can do that without judgment to others? So, those are just a few little things that work for me. But we spoke about in the breakout room just to be kinder and gentler to oneself, um, and not be so hard on oneself all the time to have to fix everything and to have all the solutions.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful advice for what we try to do, right? We're all trying to do our little things and hope on these big problems and hope it comes together. So beautifully said. Um, how about, so that seems like the broad picture of how you navigate. I don't know, I don't know, we don't know each other that well, but I get triggered. I really work hard on these things to not get triggered, but certain conversations around the work and I'm going to kind of stick to the work of third act rather than other ways I get triggered in my life. But if I read somebody and meet someone who thinks climate change isn't real or whatever it might be, you get triggered. And so work hard on realizing, oh, I'm getting triggered, and then to respond appropriately. So I'm wondering about you, like, what is it? And a lot of what we talk about in the Hope and Joy series and in the faith group that we'll talk about in a little bit is the need to have a contemplative practice. To go to the gym for the brain is kind of the way I think of it, and that's what helps me uh, slowly figure out, oh, I'm getting triggered and how to respond. So I'm wondering in that realm, are there contemplative practices that you and Justine do that you have found to be powerful?
Look, we are incredibly blessed, firstly, to do something that is a passion for us and brings us a huge amount of meaning and joy. And when we realize that it means a lot to others, that feeds us, right? So it's something that you do, and then you get this feedback loop with so many people uh, thanking you or writing to you. So and so that feels really good. Um, we're also blessed to live in a country and live in an area that is still has so much nature, still is so away from most of the world that the water you can drink out of the tap, out of the river, the air is clean, and a lot of nature is intact. A lot of the ecosystems are still intact.
Mm,
And I realize it's very rare. So for me, just to walk outside barefoot, be on the grass, look at nature, watch the
mm,
sunrise. It's about creating these rituals in our lives. So for us, Justin and I, every morning and every evening, it's a ritual.
mm,
We watch the sunrise, we
mm,
watch the sunset, cup of coffee, we check in with each other. And that's a non-negotiable. Evenings and mornings. And just to be looking at these cascading mountains of wilderness, and it's just the birds and nothing else. So I realize that's incredibly privileged and feel very blessed to have it. But nature gives me that solace. And as the poem, the first poem we read, it's where I find peace. It's where I find authenticity, and that fuels me. You know, when you spoke to Gareth a couple of months ago, he talked about the world needs well-rested people. You know, we need to be at peace. We need to be rested so that we can keep fighting or we can keep doing what we need to do. It doesn't help if we're all burnt out and so frustrated and fearful that we can't be of use. So when I do feel despondent, nature, and to continue to do the work that we're doing, and then to be of service to others, whether it's your family or your friends who need you. So that's really kind of where I get my energy from, and ground myself. And all the people, literally the people who write to us and send us comments, it's a family, and it means a huge amount. People don't really realize that, but it means a lot. I'm sure when you get comments and people say thank you for doing that talk or thank you for putting this thing together, it means a lot.
mm. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and more subtly there for those of us or things I do where you don't get those thanks. What you just said, that idea of being of service to others. Yeah, that's really a good thing to think about and remind
Uh,
oneself. I also really like the you use the phrase it's non-negotiable, that practice
yeah,
you're on. And I try to make it in my life. I have a practice to try to make it non-negotiable, and I don't, sometimes I lose. I wake up in the morning and I don't do my practice. I jump right into my work, and it's a mistake. So non-negotiable, is a good word.
exactly. And you
Uh,
did ask me about triggers. Triggers, obviously, everyone gets triggered, and you can have 99 beautiful comments and one troll or one person who will say something really mean, and you just focus on the negative, and you don't realize that there's so many people who've got your back and believe in you and support you, and that one person will just spiral out of control. And that gets me, and then I've got to kind of just reset and go again. And and in having conversations when I travel around the world, I try to find that one topic that people will also find a bird beautiful. So let's just talk about birds, or isn't the sunrise beautiful, or something that doesn't polarize us, because it can really go there quite quickly.
mm. So in that regard, we had the two videos that you suggested we watched with Phoebe and Jeff, which were great. I love them. What
Thank
was
you.
it about those people? We were just talking about that magic moment or whatever you call it, where you realize you've got this person. What was it about those two folks that made you want to film them, and or what was something that you found like takeaways or particularly poignant from your work with those two people in particular?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I never know what the conversation is going to be until I have that conversation.
Mm,
So it's not a planned thing, but I just have that feeling. You know, when you meet someone and you have that gut intuition, here's someone who is open that I want to have a conversation with. And the reason I shared those two stories were they were both with a bit of a conservation angle. And I'm a conservationist. I'm a complete greenie, and so I thought those would resonate with your audience. But also, what I loved about Phoebe, she was a lady who talked about being emotional. A lot of the times we are embarrassed to have these feelings. We're embarrassed to be too emotional. And what I loved about her story was she is proud that I'm a woman who feels deeply. So I'm going to feel deeply. but can I use my anger and channel it in a way to make a difference with humility, with love and compassion? And so I think the one line in her film that really resonated, she said, to be human is to be able to love. And that's what resonates with me profoundly. And so yeah, that's what I loved about her. And these people become friends. You know, every person I hang out with, we stay in touch. We they become these guardians. Every meeting you have with someone changes your life profoundly. Every conversation you have. And so I'm trying to make it another non-negotiable to meet as many different people from as many different walks of life and talk to them about what's important. And that changes me profoundly on my journey. And I feel very blessed to be able to do that.
I'm tempted to just call it right there. We still got 15 minutes. I have a little bit more I want to do, but that'd be the perfect way to wrap that up. Let me take care of one thing administratively here. Someone just asked me where to find the films. So the two films, they're in, most of you would have gotten an email with them in it.
Mhm.
If you didn't, I'm putting my email in the chat. You can send me a note and I'll send you the films. Um,
If you
before I
want to
go,
watch,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, if you want to watch any of the films, just Google Reflections of Life, and there will be hundreds and hundreds of stories, and they are all free to watch. You don't have to pay for them. Please watch them freely and share them with your friends. So they're all on YouTube. That's our main platform that we use. So they're all there.
And Kathleen has put in the chat the links to the specific two movies. I'll also say on Michael and Justine's behalf, if you like this work, it's funded by people like you and me. And so go on the website and donate. Um, that's what keeps the work going. And that's what keeps Third Act going, right? We all know. So we got to try and help each other. So if this work has resonated, please go do that. Before I kind of do my wrap up, Michael, do you have any, closing words you'd like to wrap up with?
No, thanks for sticking around and listening to this conversation. We are planning an exciting trip now to Europe. Um, I have no idea where I'm going, but I'm going to spend 2 or 3 months running around Europe. So if you have incredible friends or people who really resonate with you, you think are amazing, reach out to me. You can contact us on our website. I'm open to all ideas. And so we appreciate any ideas. And as Dan said, if you like the work we do, you can go onto Patreon and support us. Watching our films is enough, but for those of you who want to buy us a cup of coffee once a month, we appreciate that. Our big dream is that one day there's enough stories that you can go onto the website and see someone who looks like you, who sounds like you, who's talking about something that is something that you're dealing with, so that we have enough of a collage of thousands of people around the world who's sharing the beauty of humanity. So that's the big dream.
Beautifully put. And I look forward to maybe one way or another, there's an interaction between Third Act and you, between me and you. I'd love to continue the dialogue, and who knows where that will lead. So thank you. And thank you to Justine for being part of this little experiment that we're pulling off here, and for the work that you're doing. It's incredible. It really is. There are like 3 or 4 things I tell everybody I know about, and this is one of them, is your project. So it's wonderful. Um, the next
And
session.
I hope to come and visit the USA again